Welcome back, story lovers, to Chapter by Chapter. Thank you for continuing to join me on our journey. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment and share, as all these actions will mean I may continue to bring you stories. I have many new tales waiting to be told. Chapter 20. Shaded by her wide-brimmed hat, Marnie's eyes scanned around the archaeological site. Conran lay on his belly, scraping through the layers of time, busily devouring every nugget of information. The mood was buoyant, and there was a sense of solidarity amongst the group of students, with masked men and women melting under the midday sun. After the unexpected demise of their more senior colleagues, it was pure curiosity which pushed the geologists, paleontologists, archaeologists and artists to carefully record every detail with one precise pencil stroke next to another to search bravely and dangerously forward. They were all willfully ignoring the state of emergency and the hysterical bombardment of fear spewed out by the media. Marnie watched the alert, probing eyes and hands, the measuring and recording, and listened to voices calling back and forth with snippets of information. They were all rigorously practicing social distancing, but didn't dare consider the true nature of the risks they were undertaking. Needing to escape, Marnie had agreed at once when Conran had thrown his phone on the bed early that morning and suggested she join him, as his friends had all agreed to gamble everything to carry out a serious archaeological dig. I explained to them my theory about the fleas, he'd said excitedly, rapidly dressing and dragging her to the front door. It's best we leave early to avoid being caught. Conran's long recovery had created an anxious void in the house. Even Shadow hadn't visited, leaving her in an emotional limbo. Now, Marnie was only too happy to step into the world of Conran's imagination and allow his stories to fill the emptiness of her mind and spirit. Most of the time he'd spent in bed. She'd worked hard on her paper and had submitted it for peer review, and so far it had been favourably received. The time was now right for a hiatus. Conran had emerged from his cocoon a new person. He acted beyond the restraints of fear induced by the virus and was eager to unravel the intricate mysteries of his princess's world and the origins of the disease. Marnie approached Conran, who seemed hardly aware of her presence. She crouched at his side. He had shifted onto his knees and was stooping over a layer of grisly skeletons. Marnie's hair bristled on the back of her neck at the sight of so many bodies. "Can I help?" she uttered weakly. The unfamiliar shapes had no resemblance to the microscopic world she normally observed. The chaotic jumble of the past lightly floated in front of her, ethereal and not easy to grasp. "You won't find a cure amongst old bones. We could find answers to stop all this from happening again," Conran replied, without looking up. "There is no grave paraphernalia, and they all have perfect teeth. We have found thousands of bones, both humans and animals, who have suffered a sudden death, an extinction event." Conran sat back on his haunches and turned swiftly to face Marnie, and she lifted her gaze to meet his. He smiled broadly, unable to restrain his excitement. "We're all curious, searching for that key. We're picking a scab to find the wound. The rich treasure of knowledge trapped beneath the soil, and we think we have some interesting answers." "I suppose we all need to know what nature is capable of," Marnie said, picking up a brush and idly stroking her palm. Conran took her hand in his and guided her to the pit. Her hand within his, they brushed the dust off a bone. "See, this one is different, much larger, a mega mammal. Our skeletons are delicate by comparison." They heard someone approach. Conran eased his hands away, and glancing up, they saw a young geologist closing in on their patch. "The samples show these people were here about 11,700 years ago, during the last glacial period, or the Davensian time," he said in a raspy voice. He scratched his straw-coloured beard, took a swig of water from a bottle, and then continued. "My theory is that an ancient tribe came over to hunt in the wooded southeast, which was less affected by the Scandinavian ice sheet. Talking with the others, we suspect the fleas were carried by the elk. Their close relationship with the beasts left them susceptible to disease," Conran contributed. "My theory, I have no proof yet, is that some of the society developed immunity and were revered as having magic powers. People thought being close to this untouched group would aid their recovery or prevent them from becoming sick. The paleontologist appeared hovering close by. shifting from one foot to the other, eager to interject. "You must come and see what I've discovered." Conran and Marnie jumped to their feet, and they all followed the dark-haired, boyish man over to another trench. "Feast your eyes on that," he said, almost trembling with excitement. "Some kind of mutant," he suddenly added. They all gawped at the skeleton lying face up in the pit. "It looks like a winged baby," a small woman added, running her fingers through her short red hair as she puzzled over the extraordinary sight. "Unbelievable!" "There's a gemstone poking up by its jaw," the geologist added. "How peculiar. I must look into that," he mused. Marnie turned and flashed a scowl at Conran, warning him not to reveal too much as she wondered what Lucas might have told his brother. "This is going to be a bumpy ride," Conran said. "Perhaps it's time to stop for a beer and try and work out the best fit model of what happened here." The dark-haired youth bounced ahead towards the icebox, already drunk on the thrill of his discovery. Everyone took a can and sprawled out on the grass. The group sat or lay for a while, pondering their discoveries and drinking beer. Marnie was on alert, imagining the police were about to jump out of the bushes. Conran's theory of the fleas somehow waiting dormant in the tree where our princess was buried, although far-fetched, makes some sense. But how do we explain the monster Jim has just uncovered? The geologist said, wiping the sweat from his brow. What if, for some reason, those immune to the disease then went on to have mutant babies? The young artist added. "They're not radioactive," another interjected, laughing. Conran, lying on the grass watching the clouds, raised himself on his elbows. "We all believe the answers lie in the past," he said. "We need to work out the chain of events and patterns. We shouldn't dismiss any ideas at this time. The revered could have been immune, but later gave birth to deformed young. I have brought Marnie here today to see if we can find an answer to the flea problem, take a sample, and see if there is any viral residue." Marnie was left speechless as she believed her invitation was so she could have a break and experience some of Conran's life. "There is another issue," Conran continued. "The layers of animals and human skeletons aren't burials. They died almost instantly. There's no sign of volcanic activity, so what has caused this event?" "We know early people came over to hunt," the geologist said blandly. "It was the Deventian period. Some obviously settled here in this valley, thrived, and even went on to form an elaborate and creative society as we have seen in the water caves." The group nodded their response. "What if the climate in the north and Wales warmed? Could the mass deaths have occurred due to carbon dioxide or methane emissions in the same way they're released when the permafrost melts?" "We have some interesting theories," Conran said. "Now we need to find evidence." He jumped to his feet, bent over, and reached for Marnie's hand. "We'll go and collect some fleas, if any remains." "Be careful," the artist called after them. "It's possible the fleas are lethal, dead or alive." "All our colleagues who died were there on the day you discovered the princess." "They might not have feared the winged beasts," Marnie pondered, as they strolled away from the group and into the woods. Rocks were important to these people. Perhaps the stone was imbued with power or poison deliberately designed to send the creatures to sleep, enabling them to ride past the crisis. A kind of ancient cryogenics. They scraped out the innards of the oak, hoping to find the husks of the fleas. Marnie was able to collect many samples to take back to the lab. "That is an extraordinary theory," Conran murmured, and strolled on in deep thought. "Once more, thank you for continuing to listen to my story. Please like, subscribe, share, and perhaps take a look at my other books that you can find in all your favourite online stores, Amazon and Audible. You can find these other stories under EMG Wixley, or you may follow the links provided. Nice. In addition, for further information, please watch my shorts as they will help you decide which books might spark your interest. See you again for the next chapter in our story.